Madeline H. is from New York, New York. Her home group is the Higher Power Panel group, and she will be taking a deep dive into step 10 and 11. These steps are where we get to keep the channel clear and the connection strong, not theory practice. Not someday, today. We've got a speaker who's going to bring it to life. So lean in and listen up. We're glad you're all here. Let's get into it. You have 50 minutes, Madeline. Take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm Madeline. I'm an alcoholic. Very excited to be talking about steps 10 and 11. I'm very excited to be talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. This is my favorite topic. So I'm going to start by talking about what I think is the distinction between 10 and 11, but a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about when I talk about like what the difference between 10 and 11 is fairly arbitrary. It really doesn't matter. Like 10 and 11 are beautiful soulmates and they love each other, and there's no reason to be splitting them apart or separating them out. But I will explain what I think the difference between them is, because a lot of people talk about it in a way that is different from how I understand it. So if you read the Big Book, which is the only book that I read for my recovery, it's pretty clear about like what 10 is and what 11 is. 10 is what I'm doing as I'm going throughout my day. And then 11 is those dedicated things that I do in the morning and at night. I hear a lot of people talk about the nightly inventory that they write, and they call that their 10th step. And again, there is no problem with that. It's just like a semantic difference. I have no judgment against that. It's just not my understanding of what the distinction between them is. And the confusion comes from the fact that in the step, it's written continue to take inventory. And so it's like, oh, the inventory that I'm writing out is the inventory. But for me, step 10 is the fact that I am going through my day with an understanding of inventory and an understanding that as I am acting, I'm supposed to be taking inventory of how I'm acting, how I'm showing up, how I'm participating in the world. And that's the 10th step, is what I'm doing as I go throughout the day. And those dedicated times of prayer and meditation and inventory, that is how I practice step 11. So first, we'll talk about step 10, and then we'll talk about step 11. So the other beautiful soulmate and lover of step 10 is step 4. And the reason I say that is not because of the inventory thing, but because when step 4 is explained in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, we are given the principles that we are then going to practice in step 10. So it's telling me exactly what to do when fear comes up. It's telling me exactly what to do when resentment comes up. It's telling me exactly what to do in my personal and specifically sex relationships. We get a nice, fun little 3 pages on that. And so it's telling me what I am going to do when those things come up, which is the spirit of the 10th step. So I am going to just turn to the book a little bit. If anybody wants to follow along, I'm not going to do a whole lot from here, but I just want to read a couple things. So this is on page 84. And it says, this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So I just want to stop there for a second and say, again, my understanding of this is that, I was placed on a 9th step, and I was given the instruction for how to do the 9th step. And as I described in the last one, I wrote out all the letters that I was going to then speak out to the people that I was going to make amends to, and my sponsor graciously and lovingly agreed to look over all of those letters to make sure that I hadn't snuck in a little manipulation that I wasn't able to see or did something against, how I really wanted to show up in that way. And so I wrote out all those letters, and then she kind of held my hand through making 3 of them, and then she set me free, to do the rest of them. And I personally kind of attacked it very ferociously, and I made almost all of my amends very quickly, because I just really wanted to do that. But what it says here, we vigorously commenced this way as we cleaned up the past, is saying that there's no necessity that I finish my 9th step before I move on to the 10th step. In my opinion, it would be kind of impossible, like the way that I did it, because The ninth step is an ongoing and constant living, breathing part of my recovery. It's not this thing I checked off and completed and then, okay, now it's time to move on. It's something that is very ongoing, and that even though I made almost all of the amends that I could very early on, there were still some, that I was still working on becoming willing to make. There were some people I couldn't get a hold of. There's all kinds of things that get in the way of that. And so it says, we vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So I'm working on these 9 steps. They're an active, living, breathing part of my recovery. And then I'm putting this here into practice in my life as I'm cleaning up the past, as I'm going back and making those amends. It says, we have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. So I'm given this very specific instruction for what to do as I'm going throughout my day, because this is my favorite part. It says when these crop up, not if these crop up. So when these crop up, they're inevitably going to crop up. I'm going to have experience with selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a human being. These things are going to crop up, and it's giving me this instruction for what to do when that happens. And so all of the solutions to these things are given to me already. This is why I'm making that connection between step 4 and step 10, because in step 4, as fear is talked about, as resentment is talked about, as I'm given the instruction for how to write those inventories, I'm also given the instruction for, as I go through my day, as I commence this way of life, how to implement the solution to those things as they come up. And so when it says here, like when these crop up, we ask God to remove them. It's like there's a little asterisk, and it's like, for more detail, go back to where it's outlined in those pages described in step 4. And so I'm sure that I talked about this when I talked about the 4th step, but it's always worth repeating. So I'm going to talk about, again, what I do specifically when these things come up, as I understand, I'm instructed to from the solution from the book. And so, there, as it says in the 3rd step, there's 100 forms of fear and self-seeking and all of these things that come up for me. And so it's different, depending on how it comes up. But in terms of like selfishness, the way that I define selfishness is like those things that I want, that I feel so entitled to. And so, for me, the solution to that is like selfishness comes up and I want something and I feel entitled to it. And I have to turn to thy will be done. And I have to, remind myself to turn to this power and have that faith that I'm here to make decisions not based on self. So when I make a decision based on self, it places me in a position to be hurt. And that's my experience. When I make a decision based on patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love, that's where I have the peace. And so if I want something, this isn't, like we're not ascetics or like stoics or like if I want something like that's evil and it's wrong and it's bad. It's just that I am being taught and disciplined through this program to, instead of seeking things on the basis of self and making decisions based on self, and I need to go after this through any means necessary, through manipulation, trying to control things. I have to get my way no matter what. Instead of that, I'm making these decisions and I'm taking action based on patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love, and I'm going to walk through it. So when that selfishness comes up, I'm asking this power to remove it. When fear comes up, I'm asking this power to remove it. I'm given very specific, solution on what to do with fear. So when fear comes up, I ask what my higher power would have me be. And, that's a question that for me, I get the answer to because I have read and studied this book a lot, and the answers are in there. I'm like, what would this power have me be? Patient, tolerant, kind, and loving, open, honest, willing. So I can go back to these principles in any situation where I'm in fear. And instead of seeking, how can I go make the thing I'm afraid of not happen? Because what it says in those pages describing the fourth step, is it says when I go after getting things that I want, or that when I try to make something I'm afraid of not happen, I actually bring it closer to me, because I set the ball rolling. And I have a million examples of it, but so I'm taught this different way of like, how can I do what my higher power would have me do, and then have that full faith that whatever happens as a result of that is exactly what was supposed to happen, whether it's what I wanted to happen or not. And that promise that has to do with fear says, just to the extent that we do as we think our higher power would have us and humbly rely on them, are we enabled to match calamity with serenity. And so to break that down a little bit, it's telling me that stuff's going to go down, like it's going to get dicey. Life is going to happen. And so it's the good news, bad news situation, right? Where the bad news is that there's no promise of this program that says the thing I'm afraid of isn't going to happen. I heard someone say that in a meeting once, and it blew my mind. They were like, the thing you're afraid of, your higher power would never let that happen to you. No, like that is not the case. Like there is no promise, protection, or guarantee that the outcome I have in mind, the thing I'm afraid of, like, oh, I'll just be protected from that. Absolutely not. Like if you love someone and they're mortal and you're afraid they're going to die, like I have really bad news for you about like how that's going to end up. And so the thing I'm afraid of may happen, but the promise is that just to the extent that I'm doing as this power would have me, and that is following this direction, and I'm relying on that power instead of on myself, I am promised to walk through that sane, sober, and successfully. That's the promise. And so when fear comes up, all I have to do is take that inventory of, to what extent am I doing what this power would have me? And how can I be more aligned with what this power would have me do? How can I be more reliant on this power? And that's where I have that solution to fear, because I know if I'm doing what I've been directed to do, that I'm going to walk through it sane, sober, and successfully. So instead of running around like the little chicken with my head cut off, trying to figure out how to make the thing I'm afraid of not happen, I can just ground down into those principles, into the direction that I've been given, and have that faith that it's going to work out how it's supposed to. So I'm asking this power to remove that fear from me. And then it says, resentment, and we're given that very specific instruction of how to deal with resentment as well. Again, in those fun little pages from the fourth step. And it tells me that when resentment comes up, can I see myself in the other person? Can I see that they're sick too? I may not like the manifestation of their sickness, but can I see that they're sick like I am? And for me, that is where all the peace in my life has come from, is have I ever done that in any form at all? And why I have so much peace from that isn't because it's like, oh, now I like don't have to be upset, or everything that everybody does is okay because I did it too. But I don't have to come from that place of hate and anger and how dare they? That's the attitude that I'm really trying to protect myself from, because if God doesn't help me, with that how dare they, I get into the self-righteous indignation, and it becomes like untouchable, and I get really sick, and that barrier, that blockage between me and a higher power builds up, and it's very difficult to get through. Like, how dare they? How could they? And it's like, how could they? I've done the same thing. Like, that's how they did it. They were probably operating off of the same instincts as me. And then I've taken the edge off. And then it's like, okay, now, what do I need to do to meet this situation successfully? God, remove that resentment. And, one thing that I'll say that I'll nuance a little bit, where it says like remove fear, remove resentment. I've had some people, tell me like, oh, I thought I was supposed to like feel my feelings, and this feels like I'm just like numbing them out again or whatever. And it's like, no, I don't see it that way at all. I'm just bringing this power into them. Like, it's not that there's something like wrong with my feelings that I like can't feel them. I'll also say, like, first of all, like when I really feel my feelings, they tell me to do stuff and then I listen. So like I can't be trusted to feel my feelings by myself. That's all I'll say. Like I can't be trusted. I get too weird with it. I need this power to come in to all of my feelings. So it's not for me about like shutting them down and rejecting them and never feeling anything, not letting myself feel fear or feel anger or feel how I'm feeling, whatever. it's just about bringing this power in so I can have a constructive relationship with how I feel instead of this absolutely destructive relationship with how I feel that I've had my entire life up to this point. And so it tells me that constructive action. It says, then ask myself or ask this power to direct my attention to someone that I can help. And so I'm having this constructive relationship. So I have fear, I have resentment, I've seen myself in it, I've asked this power to come in and, like grant that faith, grant me, pity, patience, and tolerance for the other person. And then how can I be helpful? How can I bring a spirit of service into what I'm doing? And that's where I really have that peace. And so as I'm going through the day, as these things come up, I'm trying to turn to all of that. Now, I fall short of this, many times. I fall short of this all the time. And that's okay. It's okay that I fall short of it. But for me, the point is that I keep this solid orientation towards these things. When I fall short, I'm not like, oh, well, I didn't need to do that anyway, so it's okay that I fell short. It's okay that I fell short, but I need to, continue to be practicing this. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. And then, we discussed this with someone else immediately. So the fifth step, again, is like this living, breathing part of my recovery. It's not this thing that I shut the door on here. It is showing up again in step 10, and it's telling me how, to keep that eye on things. Now, I take this one really seriously. I tell my sponsor everything that's going on with me, and then I also have several other people that I keep, very current with. And, I don't see a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous as the place that I need to do this, that I need to be like sharing with someone at once. And I'm not knocking that, if other people are doing that. But my experience is that, when I need to share something else at once, that is for my sponsor, for my support group. When I'm in a meeting, I'm there to carry the message because I've been recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. If you haven't been recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body yet, meeting is your oyster. Get crazy with it, say whatever you need. But as an individual who's been recovered, I'm not in a meeting to splash around, all my stuff. That's for my sponsor. That's for my support group. I'm in a meeting to carry the same message of depth and weight that was carried to me. And so, I keep her abreast of what I have going on. Because I can get really out there. It says here, we watch for dishonesty. We watch for dishonesty, and for me, dishonesty is not just like the things I'm telling somebody else, but it's what's going on in my head. What delusions I'm operating off of, and so I have to keep a very close eye on how I'm thinking, how I'm operating. I need to be telling another person because I have a disease that is constantly working on me. I may have been sober, I may be sober now over 7 years, but that doesn't mean that the next drink isn't there. And what I was taught is that at 7 years, I am much closer to my next drink than my last. Because my last drink was 7 years ago, over 7 years ago. And my next one could be next week if I stopped doing what I needed to be doing, if I put down this way of life, if I let a delusion really run rampant. And what I tell my sponsees is I'm the anti-delusion brigade. That's what I tell them, like I'm here to smash and squash your delusions, because I find them to be very dangerous. One delusion leads to the next, and if I get delusional enough, that ultimate delusion is always waiting for me. The delusion of the first drink, that I can get loaded. It will be okay. It will be different this time. This doesn't count. Those are the types of delusions my head is always trying to get me in. And so I do this with my sponsor. I tell her what's going on. I ask her to be honest with me. And then with my sponsees, if they bring something to me that sounds a little funky, it sounds a little, out there, and I'm not God to say like, hey, that sounds like you must be in a delusion. I just throw it out there of like, hey, when I'm saying something like that, that's what it is. Does that resonate with you? I'm not here to tell them what's going on in their head because I don't know, but I will offer those things. And, this, we were talking about the sixth and the seventh step. And to me, that's the great freedom of the sixth and the seventh step, is that it is letting me say, like,
because I'll try to dress something up, right? Like I want something and I want it to be okay that I want it, and I want it to be okay for me to go after it by any means necessary. And that's not the case. There are a lot of things I want that are not okay for me to have, and it's never okay for me to go after things by any means necessary. But I'll gussy it up and I'll make it sound good. You know what? I'll just get specific. There's an individual, and I've referred to this before. There's an individual in my life who I have a very difficult relationship with, and who I really, I can have a relationship with this person, or I can have a relationship with God, and it's really that simple. And we're both in Alcoholics Anonymous together, and I get a great rush from being in the same room as them. And that blocks my relationship with God. And so I love to be like, oh, I have a service commitment there. Oh, my friend is having an anniversary. I simply must go to this meeting. No, I mustn't. Like, and that's just me. Like, it's my head. It's my head feeding me this delusion, working on me against everything that I know to be true. But it's gussying it up, right? It's making it sound like service. It's making it sound like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's making me sound like, oh, this is necessary for my relationship with God. When I know deep down within, shout out, that it is not, that it is blocking me from a relationship with God. And so for me, that anti-delusion brigade is very important, where like it's one thing for me to say, I'm going to this meeting because I want to get the vicarious pleasure of being near this person. I know it's not right. I know it's not okay, but that's why I'm going to it. For me, that's much more, that's much better than being like, oh, I'm going for service and I'm going because everyone needs me to be there. No, that's not the case. And so anytime that I'm lying or making it up or gussying things up to try to make it better, I'm slipping into a delusion. And for me, in my experience, if I slip into that delusion far enough, I will not be able to see myself to the truth and see my way out. And the other thing about dishonesty, being asked to remove this, is, there's definitely also a way for me to use the truth as a way to manipulate other people, as a form of selfishness. I can do it all the time. I had a fun example of it that I actually didn't do, but I thought about it. So it's like a good example where I was like, let's not do that. I had an assignment that was due for one professor, and I was like behind in it, and I was like a little worried about how it was going to go, and I was speaking with her, and my thesis is also due very soon. And that's a fact. It is a fact. It is a fact of God's reality that my thesis is due soon. The fact that I was behind in the other professor's assignment had nothing to do with that. These things were completely unrelated. And I could have said a true thing in that moment when I was talking to her about this other assignment and been like, oh yeah, and my thesis is due. And I thought about saying that. And that would have been true. That would have been a fact. But I would have been saying it to manipulate her. I would have been saying it to her to try to get a little bit of that, sympathy, like, oh, don't you know about my thesis, so I can get away with this like other thing. And so with honesty, it's not just about the truth. It's about why I'm saying what I'm saying. And so this is what I need God for. This is what I need to share with another person at once. This is what I need to keep this constant, look at. This is the inventory it's talking about, where in that moment when I have that thought to say, oh, and don't you know my thesis is due soon? When I have the thought to say that, this is God in my life. This is the 10th step, is that it comes in and it says, you're saying that so you can manipulate her and not as a true expression of God's reality. Great. That's the 10th step in action. And I didn't say that, and God bless me. And that's how we know there's a higher power, because if it's up to me, I'm going to say the manipulative thing every time. So let's turn back to what it says here. We resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. So it's always bringing me back to helpfulness and service, to action. So I'm feeling my feelings. I'm bringing God in. I'm having this new relationship with them, and then I'm turning to something constructive. How can I be helpful? How can I bring a spirit of service into something? And there are times when resentment and fear, get so debilitating that maybe the most helpful thing that I can do for others is to recharge in that moment as a result of it, and that's okay. I always have to be thinking about my maximum usefulness, and that's definitely what part of this program. So then it goes on in the 10th step to talk about the 10-step promises. It gives us the 10-step promises. And the 10-step promises are that the mental obsession will be relieved of me. And it's not random, right? Like, it's not this random thing of like, oh, we get to the 10th step and then, the obsession is removed. The obsession is removed because as I go through the day, taking this inventory, turning to a higher power, clearing that blockage moment to moment as the blockage comes out, that is where the question of the drink gets relieved. I no longer have that sense, that need to reach out for that sense of ease and comfort that I'm getting from taking a few drinks, because the blockage between me and a higher power is being cleared out minute to minute, hour to hour. So the relationship between the 10th step and the 10th step promises is that as I live this life in growing and understanding and effectiveness, live in the true realm of the spirit, the thought of the drink, day at a time is removed from me. And so it's not some, random occurrence. They have that relationship between them. And then the 10-step promises end with, this is how we react, saying we react from the drink as we would you recoil from a hot flame, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And then it says, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. And so what I'm told there is actually the only thing that the Big Book calls easy. It doesn't say anything else is easy. It says it's easy to let up. We have easy appears, and another time it says easy does it. That's one of our slogans. But it doesn't say that anything else in this program is going to be easy, but it does say that it's easy to let up. And I've seen that. I've watched that. in people. And what I've seen when people let up on the spiritual program of action is that delusion comes in, and it comes in quick, and it comes in fast, of oh, it wasn't really that important to do that anyway. Because this is what's so funny is oh, I let up a little bit and then the mouth doesn't fill up with vodka, and it's see, this is fine. It's oh, everything's good. Nothing crazy happened all of a sudden, because that's normally not how it goes. But it says alcohol is a subtle foe. It's waiting on me. It's waiting on me. It's lulling me into the sense of security. And so, I can't do that. I can't let up. Now, I happen to be blessed by the good Lord with obsessive compulsive disorder. And that has helped me out quite a bit, because for me, I do all the things I've been directed to do every day, and I can't go to bed if I haven't. So I just do them all every day. But I'm not a saint. It's just dispositional. I am both convinced that if I let up on it, things aren't going to go well. And also I have a personality that is very prone to structure, discipline, and routine, and doing all of the same things every day. So I can't say I personally have experience of letting up on, the outward action, but I certainly have gotten my experience of being in self-will and of not practicing principles and, getting, my little butt handed to me on the basis of those things. And so I can definitely attest, that is true of the importance of maintaining the spiritual condition in all areas, not just the outward action, not just a consistent prayer and meditation routine and going to a meeting every day, but those principles, and really practicing them and being committed to their practice. And, there's a phrase that runs around in Alcoholics Anonymous that says, don't drink no matter what. I take great issue with that because if I could just don't drink no matter what, I'd be out there just don't drinking no matter what. That would be my program of action. That's how I would do it. But when I tell you all that I'm an alcoholic, I say, I'm Madeline, I'm an alcoholic. What I'm telling you is that I'm beyond the power of choice. And so what that means is that I can't control whether I take a drink again or not. That's not something I have a choice over. And so the reason that I take issue with people saying just don't drink or just don't drink no matter what is because it places the emphasis on the part that I don't have control over. I don't have control over whether I drink or whether I drink no matter what or whether I drink in this situation or not. That's not the part I have any control over. The only part I have any control over is whether I'm participating actively in a spiritual program of action. And so what I wish we would say is just don't let up no matter what. Just don't let up no matter what. Because that is the only part that I really can do anything about. Now, I will say that I understand the spirit people are saying just don't drink no matter what. And they're saying, like, no matter what circumstance comes up, I won't have to drink. But that's the promise that has to do with fear, where it says just to the extent that I do as this power would have me and humbly rely on them, am I enabled to match calamity with serenity. That's what it's telling me, is that just to the extent that I do what this power would have me, I'm going to walk through these situations sane, sober, and successfully. I'm going to meet calamity with serenity. And so it's telling me right there in that promise that it's not about like, oh, well, when this really bad situation comes up, let me just sit on my hands and make sure I don't drink no matter what. And I joined the no matter what club, so I won't drink. But to what extent am I following this direction? Am I participating actively in this program? So that is what it's telling me here, is that it's easy to let up. But if I let up, it's going to come back in. So let's talk about the 11th step now. Again, they're very intertwined. And so I'll tell you all, how I do it, how I direct others to do it. So I can't really do this without just going through my whole day. So I'll just go through my whole day. So the way that I practice prayer and meditation is that it's all peppered in. So the very first thing that I do when I wake up in the morning, very first thing that I do every morning, and I was directed to do this a very long time ago when I very first got sober, is I read pages 60 to 63 and 84 to 88 from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the very first thing I do every single morning. I don't grab my phone, I grab my book. And I read those pages. And those are the pages that have to do with the third step and the pages that have to do with the 10th and the 11th step. Because those are the things that, I need it all throughout the day, but those are the things that I really need. Because if I don't read the pages about the third step, it's all for naught, right? That's the keystone. So I need to be coming from this place of humility, coming from this place of understanding my positionality in the world, that I'm just a little guy. I'm here to play the role that I was assigned. God's up here, I'm down here. My fellows are all right here, shoulder to shoulder with me. I need to understand that positionality for any of the action that I just described or any of these tools to be put into place at all. So I read those pages, and I will tell you all that after literally thousands of times of reading them, and it being the very first thing that I do in the morning, I am not perfectly absorbing every single word of them. The reason that I still make that the first thing that I do every morning is because every morning I start my day with someone else's direction, with a power greater than myself, with the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and not my phone. And that's a gift, So a lot of times, a lot of mornings, it's more of a meditation than it is like a reading. Like I'm absorbing some of it. I'm, bringing my eyes across the page. But to me, it's still very important that I continue to do it, even though I've read those pages so many times. And so I continue to do that. I say the third and the 7th step prayer out loud. And then I have to write the rest of my prayers out, because I'll start thinking about myself if I don't. If I say them in my head or try to say them out loud, I'll just start thinking about myself. And the other thing is, I have an incredibly physical disease. There's a physical component to alcoholism, so I really like having, a physical way to incorporate the solution into my life every day. So I write my prayers out. And it gives us that direction in the wording of the 11th step, where it says praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So it's giving me, parameters, right? So we can get freaky with prayer, we can do it however we want, but we have that parameter that I'm not praying for specific outcomes. I'm praying for, knowledge of this power's will and then the power to carry that out. So anything I already know is my higher power's will for me is totally fine for me to pray on, for me to pray for specifically. But other than that, I can't get specific with outcomes and all of that. And so we're given very specific instruction for the prayers. So I write out a version of those prayers. So the few places that it makes mention of it is in these pages, 86 on, where it says that I'm going to pray for the removal of my character defects, to be divorced from these things, from, self-pity and dishonest motives and self-seeking. And so I'm praying for that with that understanding that it doesn't come from within me to not act out on my character defects. If I could just wake up in the morning and say, I'm not going to be a B word today and have that work out for me, that would be my spiritual program of action. That's what I would do. But it doesn't work out for me. I can't do that. And so when I'm praying to indicate my willingness to practice the 10th step throughout the day, which means that I'm going to rely on this power for those things instead of on myself. So the prayer is this disciplined action for me of indicating my willingness of going through the day with this power instead of turning to myself. And so I pray for the removal of my character defects. The other thing it tells me to pray for, this is in the pages that have to do with the 9th step. It says in your morning meditation, ask your Creator to show you the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. So I pray to be shown the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love every morning. I pray for the other principles as well, to be, open and willing and honest, and to bring to each occasion that I attend. That's in a different part of the book as well. To bring a spirit of service into all that I do. And then the final place that it mentions in the book, a morning meditation, what to say in morning meditation, is on page 164. And it says, to show me what I can do for those who are still sick. It says the man who is still sick, meaning everyone. And so that's very important. It's very important that I'm thinking about that person who may not have the message of Alcoholics Anonymous yet. How can I strategically place myself in a position where I might meet somebody that I can carry this message to? And so I pray for that. I write all of that out. I thank this power for all that I have, all that I am, and all that I will ever be, for I know it is only through them that I have anything at all. And then I'm asked to be shown how to utilize the blessings and resources that I've been given to give back and not just hoard them to myself. So I write all that out every morning. It's different wording, but basically all of those same things. And then I spend 3 minutes in silent reflection thinking about what this power might say back to me. And then I write that down as well. That's called two-way prayer. That's the old school thing they did in the Oxford group before they wrote the big book. And a lot of them continued to do it. A lot of people in the original fellowship continued to do it after. I think I understand maybe why it didn't make it into the big book, because saying and then what God would say back to you maybe would have confused some alcoholics. So maybe I understand why they didn't do that. And I really try to keep that loose. I try not to get weird with that. I try not to be like, well, God told me, to do this. And I try to keep that a little bit chill. It's very similar things, that I get back in that message in that 3 minutes of silent reflection. And it's things along the lines of, you're loved, you have everything you need, stay on this path, that really goes somewhere, or it's like, be honest, greet challenge as a friend. That was one that I got one time. And that was very helpful to me. And I've really been living by that since that was kind of given. So it's not like elaborate stuff of like, go and get whatever. So I try to keep that chill. So I do that. And, then I'm going through the day practicing the 10th step. And then at the end of the day, I write out a written inventory. And what my inventory looks like is I write where resentment came up, where I was dishonest, including delusion, because I actually don't have a ton of things that I say throughout the day that aren't true. Certainly not on purpose. I mean, I'm sure I say things that aren't true all the time, but it's my understanding that they're true. So whatever. But things that I say that are intentionally not true, but I operate off of a delusion every day. And almost, every day, if I don't have anything else to write, it's like, I operated off of the delusion that it's all about me, that it was very important for me to get what I wanted. These things are not true, but I certainly operated at one point or another through the day like they were. So I write that out. And then I write a section for where I was selfish, and for me, and then self-seeking. And for me, the distinction between selfish and self-seeking is that selfish is what happened in my head, and then self-seeking is what I actually did. And so I write about the things that came up in my head, what I was thinking about that was selfish, and that's like, I want to be seen a certain way. I think I've written that every single day. I want to know everything. Like, these are the things that I like selfishly am consumed by as I go throughout the day. And another example that I give of like selfishness, like what goes on in my head that's selfish, is that I want two completely opposite and impossible things. Like, I want to be a perfect student, and I want everybody to see me as a perfect student, and I also don't want to put in any work at all. These are the two things that I want. Now, these are impossible. One of those has got to give. Like, we are not going to get both of those outcomes together. They are impossible. And so, like, it's not inherently selfish, to want to be a good student, and it's not inherently selfish to, like, not want to do work, whatever. But, like, the fact that I want these two completely opposite things in such extremes, like, is selfish. It's delusional. It's outside of the possibility of God's reality. And so I have to bring myself back to, what's possible and what's real. So I write all that out, self-seeking. What did I actually do? How did I manipulate people to see me the way that I wanted to be seen or get what I wanted throughout the day? And I write that out. And then I have a, section for where I was frightened, where fear came up. I write that out as well. We have a very repetitive thing where it's like, resentment, somebody didn't see me the way I wanted to be seen. Dishonest, I was in the delusion that it was important for people to see me the way that I wanted to be seen. Selfish, I wanted to be seen the way I wanted to be seen. Self-seeking, I did stuff to be seen the way I wanted to be seen. Fear, I'm afraid I'm not going to be seen the way I want to be seen. Like, sometimes it looks like that. Like, that stuff is coming up. Like, that's what it is. That is the disease I suffer from. So, we're writing that out. We write out fear. I have a little section. Does anything need to be shared at once? And that's because, maybe I didn't get a hold of, my sponsor that day. I didn't get a hold of anybody that day. And so I keep a little note there, so I can refer back to it, make sure that I didn't miss anything. And then I spend 3 minutes in silent reflection, thinking about what I could have done better and how I could better practice those principles into the next day. We're asked some questions here on page 86. Yeah, 86, where it says, here's on 86, have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do of others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? So I spent 3 minutes in silent reflection thinking about those questions. And then I write down what comes up in that meditation. And then after that, I write a list of all of the ways that God showed up in my day, all the ways that God did for me when I could not do for myself. To keep a little track of that, keep a little tally on that. And it says, it warns us about slipping into, like, morbid reflection or over, remorsefulness. And so this inventory for me is constructive. It's a gift. It's not breaking me down. It's allowing me to keep an eye on these things and to turn these things to God so they don't get away from me. And I write that inventory every night. And this is not an exaggeration. I don't think I'd be alive today if I didn't do that every night. Because I am so prone to delusion. I'm so prone to extreme acts of selfishness and self-seeking and harm to others, that if I'm not constantly looking at that, like, that will come up, and I'll convince myself that it's okay, and then I'll become so isolated from others that final delusion will set in, and it will seem like the only option. So for me, inventory is a really, really important thing, and I need that connection with a higher power. And all those little things that I do throughout the day are just little pieces of debris. They're little debris between me and a higher power, and this inventory at night helps clear that away. It helps me see what are the corrective measures that I need to take. how do I want to show up in the next day? And after 7 years of discipline of doing that, like, I have a different reaction when those things come up. It's a different relationship to the selfishness, self-centeredness, fear, and delusion I've always suffered from. But it comes from this. And I'll read one other thing. This is on page 88, and it says, we alcoholics are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. So this constructive solution to prayer and meditation and inventory and all of that is the discipline that I was always seeking my entire life but never had. This was the discipline that I just couldn't get a handle on. Like, I need a higher power, and I need specific instruction on how to live. And so this is giving me both of that. It's giving me that connection to that power and the specific direction on how to live and how to maintain that connection. And I want to point out like two kind of, well, I guess like three parallels. So it says knowledge of our higher power's will and the power to carry that out. It also says that we pray to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So understanding is knowledge of our higher power's will, and then effectiveness is the power to carry it out. It says we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of this power. So my will is that knowledge of a higher power, knowledge of a higher power's will, and that growing in understanding and turning my life over is the power to carry that out and growing in effectiveness. So those things, they're all aligned. Like this is the consummation, the culmination, the final like way that I turn my will and my life over. So my will is everything that happens in my head, and my life is everything that I actually do. And so how I'm turning my will over on a daily basis is this direction of when selfishness, self-centeredness, fear, delusion, resentment, dishonesty come up. I'm asking this power what they would have me be. I'm asking this power to remove it, to be with me through those things. And then I'm taking that constructive action to go and be helpful to somebody else, turning my life over, following that direction. So these things are all interrelated. The steps all have a relationship to each other. So we're given this with the third step, we're given this understanding. I'm given this understanding that the positionality I've been taking in the world of playing God has not worked out for me. And then I'm taught all through the rest of the steps exactly how to have a relationship with this power so that I don't play God in my life. And that's what the gift of the 11th and the 10th step are. That's the gift of them, is that they're keeping me centered, playing the role that I'm assigned, instead of all over here playing God and, crashing myself against the cosmic impossibility of being one little guy who thinks they're God. And it's such a gift. It's the 10th and 11th step are such a gift. And I try to practice them. I fall short many times. I haven't missed a day of that constructive, prayer and meditation that I told you about. I've done that every day since I've been sober. However, like I said, practicing the principles and showing up throughout my day, I fall short of that many times. I fall short of that many, many times. But it's the inventory and the prayer that is holding me through that, where I'm falling short. It's holding me up and keeping me connected to this power so that I don't, fall through the sinkhole of alcoholism. I will leave it there. Thank you all so much for letting me speak to you today.
Bill, would you like to come in with your question for Madeline?
Yes, I'd love to. Madeline, just thank you for such a articulate and considered commentary on steps 10 and 11. The phrase that always means something to me, and I just want your opinion, is before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. My experience is that is a crucial question every day. Please direct my thinking. And you mentioned the idea of it essentially being a disease of perception. And my real question is this. Sorry, I want to be really quick. The book is unequivocal. It's specific. It's non-contradictory. But is there anywhere in the book that you find it ambiguous or you find it difficult to agree with? I don't know if that's a good way to put it. I'll shut up now. Thanks.
I love that question. Yeah, I have not found it difficult to agree with everything in the book. There's one paragraph that is so specific and so random that I'm like, I have no idea what they meant by this. And it's in the part where it talks about the type 1 alcoholic into wives. And it talks about how the type 1 husband should go and find other drinkers to help before they've gotten sober. And I'm like, why would they want that? Why would they want these type 1 alcoholics who don't have a solution and aren't doing AA to go and find each other and help each other? That is the only ambiguity that I have ever seen in the whole book, where I'm like, I really wonder what they meant by that. And then the whole rest of the book, I'm like, I'm fully on board. So that's a very random and specific example, but that's the answer to your question.
Thanks for your question, Bill. Thank you so much for your answer, Madeline. Sensei, I hope I haven't mispronounced your name. Would you like to come in with your question?
Hey everybody, my name's Sansei Ish. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much for an amazing pitch on 10 and 11. And my question was more on the spot check part of the 10-step inventory, and I'm wondering if you could just touch on that a little bit. Cheers.
Can you ask a more specific question? Because that is what I was talking about for the first 30 minutes was the spot check inventory. So what part could I clarify for you? Sure, maybe I can unmute you. Here, I'm allowed to ask too. Did that work?
There it is. Yeah, I thought that was kind of the nightly inventory, but then there's like the spot check inventory that they talk about in the 12 and 12. I'm sorry if I came in a little bit late, so but I thought.
Yeah, no, that's what. So yeah, the first 30 minutes of the talk was concerned with that spot check inventory. That was what I had kind of dedicated that to. So again, I'm happy to answer your question, but what specifically, like that's I guess I could try to distill it into a shorter portion, but yeah, I mean, it's the direction that it gives, where it says, as I go through the day, when selfishness, resentment, fear, and delusion come up, yeah, I'm sorry. It's like I talked about it for 30 minutes, so I'm trying to figure out how to make it shorter to answer your question here.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I thought it was
no, don't be sorry.
The nightly inventory. I thought that was what you were talking about. Okay.
No, the last.
else.
No. The last 20 minutes was the nightly inventory, and for the first 30 minutes, I talked about how to do the spot check inventory. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I really did miss it then.
I can distill it, I'm sure. So yeah, as when selfishness and fear and resentment and delusion come up, it tells me very specifically, to ask this power to remove it, and then to turn my attention to what I can do for those who are, or to be helpful to others. And so I practice that, that prayer and meditation through that. So yeah, I mean, if you want more elaboration on it, this talk was recorded, and so the first 30 minutes of it would be concerned with how to practice the spot check inventory.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you, Madeline. Before I bring Freedom in, Tamara will be our last question today. So, Freedom, would you like to come in with your question for Madeline?
Sure. Hello, family. I'm an alcoholic, and my name is Freedom, and thank you so much, Madeline. I never get tired of listening to you. But my question has to do with this stack that is next to me. This is almost 7 years of journaling, okay? Started 2 days before my sobriety day because that's not my first time in here. Now, I don't go back and reread them too often because there's something going on in this one here, which was the first one. I thought I was doing so well, and I was insane. Oh my gosh, have you ever gone back and looked at your old journals and found the same thing? And don't make it a one-word answer, please.
Oh, I have plenty of elaboration on that. No, absolutely, I have. So when I bring a sponsee through steps 10 and 11, I show that wherever they are, like however long they've been sober, I go into my, because I've kept all mine as well. So I go back into my inventories from wherever they're at in their sobriety, and I read to them examples of that. I read to them recent examples, and I use that to show what's possible through this program. So every time that I bring a sponsee through 10 and 11, I'm going back through those, and 1,000,000% I'm like, wow, I really thought that was spiritual. I really thought, and it's just a testament to how effective the inventory is that over time it really does build, and I really do get to learn and grow from that. So absolutely, I go back. And it's like, I could look at one from like, a year ago, 6 months ago, and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I thought that at the time, because, more will be revealed. It's revealed all the time, and I can't fully see it in the moment, but then I'm able to. So thank you so much for that question, and absolutely, I relate to that.
Thank you. Great question, Freedom. Great answer. Thank you, Madeline. Joe, coming in with your question for Madeline.
Hi, I'm Joe, alcoholic. Madeline, thanks so much for coming and everyone doing service. Madeline, you talked around a two-way prayer, okay? And I've been doing a lot of two-way prayer. But how do you trust, when you write your prayer and then you get your response, how do you rely upon that? Like, is that giving up on your will, or is it, because the way our minds can be so distorted, especially in early sobriety?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I think my answer to that has to do with the fact that I do two-way prayer maybe a little bit different than other people do it. I don't pray about specific questions and then have like an answer from a higher power come up, because I cannot be trusted with that. As I think I talked about, I suffer from religious delusion and religious psychosis, and I thought I was Aphrodite's chosen mortal on earth, blah, 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 blah. So like, I cannot be trusted to like bring a specific question and then be like, God told me the answer to this. Can't do it. The way that I pray is just in a very general way. So I'm very generally praying to be able to practice these principles, knowledge of my higher power's will, the power to carry it out, show me what I can do for those who are still suffering, all that. And then I spend that 3 minutes in silent reflection, just thinking about what the response from a higher power would be. And so it's things like, like you are loved, or like, practice faith, or, like things like that. It's like very simple stuff. When I have like a specific question that I need like an answer to, or I want to know God's will with, I can't just like take that into my own mind. I need to consult with others. I need to bring that to a sponsor. I need to like, definitely like go within and pray, but like I can't do it where like I've prayed and then I meditate and like that's God's answer, because I have too much delusion and too much running around in there. So I really appreciate that question.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for your answer, Madeline. And Tamara, you're our last question. Come on in.
Right. Thank you so much, Andrew, for your service. And Madeline, that was absolutely brilliant. So appreciate it. So my question is, how do you stay connected when life gets full, stressful, or distracting?
I mean, I guess I have a really simple answer to that, and that's that I just continue to do the same things that I've always done. So I do that prayer, meditation, and inventory that I described. I do that every day. I go to a meeting every day, and I just have those things, very set in place. Where I'm at school, and I was in community college, and I felt it really important to go to community college first before I went to the next step of university, because I wanted to make sure that I could, maintain my foundation and also do school. And then that went very well. And so then I went and, I'm here at Columbia in New York. And when I got here, I was, like, how am I going to, show me what it means to put this first, even though like I'm in a very different environment. And you know what? It turns out I was able to go to a meeting every day. And I'm president of the recovery club. At our school, we have a recovery club, and we put on meetings, and we have a a community of recovery that I've been blessed to help lead and foster in these last couple of years that I've been here, and you know, the prayer and the meditation. And so it's like I stay connected by staying connected. You know, I continue to do those simple things that I've been directed to do, and I haven't, you know, cut things out, and I don't know that that'll be true the rest of my life. You know, I don't know that I'll always do the exact same things, but I know that I did them yesterday, I did them today, and I'm likely to do them tomorrow. And yeah, I guess that's the only real answer that I have to that. Like when life comes up and things get big, like I can always, you know, just keep my attention, you know, back to this primary purpose. And I love that. That was the tradition that was read today, and it's like, when everything gets all complicated, it's just like bring myself back to like my primary purpose. I'm here to be helpful, and when I can bring myself back to that, like everything else really works out. Thank you all so much for your questions and for your comments, and I love you all so much. And next time will be our last one. Woo!